Hello, and welcome back to the Love People Use Things podcast. My name is Noah Church, and I am your host this week. It's been a little while since you've heard my voice, but you heard Don Hawkins speak last week, and then Matt before that. I hope that you listened especially to Matt's episode. It was pretty interesting. If you haven't, then I can tell you that Matt will be taking a whole month off the internet, completely internet free for the month of August. Blows your mind, doesn't it, that that's even possible, that you could even survive a whole month without the internet. I haven't done it in, well, probably since I was 18 years old and spent a month in Africa. But I think even then, I checked my email one day in the capital city of the country that I was in. Whew, man. Kind of brings things into perspective, isn't it? For tens and hundreds of thousands of years, humanity lived without one iota of internet access, and now most of us don't go a single day without it. My business is based on the internet. You're listening to this podcast because of the power of the internet, but it is good sometimes to take a step back and get back in touch with life that's happening in the physical world around you, and not relying on the internet for distraction, entertainment, even work or research, and just taking a break for a while. I'm sure it'll give Matt a lot of perspective and family time, and I wish him all the best. Don't worry, you'll still hear from him because he is an industrious fellow and will record his podcast for August before August begins. And when he comes back, I'm sure he'll have lots that he has learned to share with us, and I'm looking forward to that. There was a time a couple years ago where I decided to give up electronic entertainment for, I think it ended up being about 4 months. And it meant for me, no watching TV or just entertaining videos or movies by myself. I still would watch movies sometimes with friends when they wanted to watch something. It also meant no video games. And so that has been always something that I grew up with and that I enjoyed as a kid and into adulthood. Was video games. At times, it became intrusive on the rest of my life, and I was playing far too much. So I figured that it would be good for me to just take a complete break from all of that and get back in touch with other things that are entertaining, but also leave me feeling, more satisfied than just mindlessly watching TV or video games can do. Things like reading good literature. Matt talked about that in his last episode, or just listening to music. Learning new skills, learning a language, learning Spanish. I think during that time I read more books than I had for a long time, and reading was always something that I really enjoyed as a child as well. It could bring a lot of joy and new knowledge and information and perspective into your life, and it really stimulates the brain more, I think, than watching something. Because, documentaries or other videos can be educational and be very valuable, but they don't stimulate the imagination in the same way as the written word. And so it was good for me to get back in touch with that. Now that ended after a friend of mine introduced me to this new video game that he was playing that really looked like fun. And so I ended up downloading that, and the whole experiment ended with that. It all came flooding back. But eventually I just decided I'm going to engage with these things in moderation after, I've already had a productive day. I've finished my to-do list, my tasks, and I'm feeling good and just want to play around with some video games or watch a little TV at the end of the day. And that works okay. That works pretty well. I haven't felt the need to give it up entirely since, but maybe Matt will inspire me and I'll do my own experiment with this, though I don't think I'll be giving up the internet entirely, because that means leaving behind my business and my clients for too long. Might do that for a week or so at some point, but probably not a month. All right, well, enough of hearing me rambling. Let's get into today's actual topic, which is 5 lessons that will be essential to learn in order to grow past a pornography addiction or a compulsive relationship with pornography. Having coached now hundreds of people and having gone through my own journey, growing past my need and my compulsion to use pornography, I've learned that there are some commonalities between those who are successful, and also some commonalities among those who tend to relapse and fall into the same cycle and feel trapped in that cycle of relapse and then getting motivated and trying something new, but then falling into the same trap again, and round we go. And here are a few lessons that will really help you start to break out of that cycle into new territory and start building the life that you really want. Number one that I thought of that came to my mind was mindfulness. Mindfulness is probably a word that you've heard thrown around, at least if you haven't researched it already, or read about it, or heard others talk about it, or tried mindfulness meditation for yourself. It's gotten quite a lot more popular in the last few years. And it can seem, especially when you hear that word meditation, that it's a spiritual practice that's outside of your daily life. It seems like it's, for some yogi in a monastery somewhere in the Far East, and not something that would really belong in your daily life. But when we actually look at what it is and what it means, that's not the case. Mindfulness is simply the act of being present in your life. And meditation, mindfulness meditation, is a way of practicing and strengthening that skill of remaining present in your life. So what does a mindful person look like? A mindful person is able to bring his or her focus back to whatever he or she is engaging in at that time. If they're at work, dealing with customers or patients or whatever, then they're able to focus entirely on that interaction, bring their whole being into that moment, and do the best they can with the skills they have and the situation that they are given, without being bogged down and distracted by regrets over the past, worries over the future, insecurities, intrusive thoughts that really have no place in that moment. It's not that their minds become perfectly still pawns, or it's not that they're tyrants over their thoughts. Mindfulness is just about recognizing that we are not our thoughts, and that we exist apart from each stray thought that enters our mind. We don't have to follow these thoughts down the path that they lead us toward. We can observe them, recognize them, and then gently bring our attention back to the present moment. Mindfulness meditation, we often focus on our breath, and you can read all about this online. There's also a popular website called Headspace that offers guided meditation. I think the first 10 days are free. So if you'd like to get into it and start experimenting with it, that's a good way to do so. But mindfulness meditation, you often focus on your breath, and every time you notice your mind wandering and following a stray thought that has entered into your mental space, you just gently bring your focus back to your breath after recognizing what your mind is doing. And by doing so over and over again, even though it feels like there's a lot of chaos in your mind, as long as you're able to continually bring your awareness back to your breath, that's strengthening your ability to be aware and conscious of what's happening in your mind. And so when you're going about your daily life, you can do the same thing. If you start getting caught down this line of thinking about some anger or grudge you hold toward someone in the past, or an urge to engage in behavior that you know is harmful to you, you can recognize that and choose not to immerse yourself in those thoughts or emotions or urges. Just observe them, and then gently bring your focus back to the present moment, because that's what is important. Now, mindfulness doesn't mean that you never think about the past or the future. I get that question sometimes. But it means that you choose when to think about the past and the future. If you're on a walk after work, for instance, and you want to think about the future and where you're headed and your plans for the following weeks and months and years, then that would be a good time to do so, but do it consciously. And don't just let those thoughts intrude when you're trying to focus on the present moment. Being mindful is really going to help addicts, because for addicts, we know how easy it is to get swept away in that river of impulse, of urge and temptation, and just let everything go, say screw it to all the better angels of our nature, and follow that impulse wherever it leads. But by training this ability to be mindful, we can step outside of the current of those impulses, observe them and recognize them, and then choose to focus elsewhere. All right, our second one is an extension of that first lesson, and this lesson is just to learn how to get in touch with and start meeting your actual needs. I hear all the time after people start giving up porn that a lot of emotions and traumas start bubbling to the surface, things that they thought they were beyond. Injuries, emotional injuries that they didn't even realize were there anymore because they've been masking and numbing that pain for so long with a distraction like pornography. But once that mask is ripped away, those pains, those scars, those wounds come back to the surface. And that's a good thing because as long as we're just repressing those traumas or those feelings, we can never really resolve them, face them, heal from them. They're just there, waiting, festering, growing even more injurious to our souls. But once that mask is gone and we rid ourselves of that need to constantly escape from our emotions, they come back. And that's the time when we really need to be mindful of what's happening, accept that these negative emotions are part of the human experience and that they're not bad for us. We don't need to escape from them, but we can learn from them. We can learn from these feelings and start to discover what we actually need in our lives. I was talking with a client just the other day. He said he always felt like a lone wolf, like he never really needed other people. But now that he's leaving behind porn, he feels that loneliness and he feels like he needs people and needs that connection. He always did. He was just masking that need with pornography. But now that he knows that he needs that connection with others, he can start to work towards acquiring it and fostering those relationships. Journaling helps with this. It helps you to live consciously. If you've never tried to journal on a regular basis or have tried in the past but given it up, I encourage you to pick up that journal again. And the way that I think it works best is to commit to journaling every single day. But it can be as little as a single word. Some days you'll be tired. It will be one word, one sentence. You won't have much to say, but you're still building that habit of journaling and living consciously every single day. And other days you'll start to write and you'll realize that there's a lot you want to get out onto the page. And it's a process of self-discovery. And it will really allow you to understand yourself at a deeper level. Another thing you can do is start opening up to those in your life, talking to people, really having those deep, profound, meaningful conversations, not just small talk, but opening up about your fears and your pain and your hopes and your dreams. You don't necessarily need to ask for help from others, but it can be incredibly cathartic to open up in that way and let others in. If you're not ready for that, or you don't have someone in your life yet whom you feel comfortable doing that with, then you can start with an anonymous online support community. There are all sorts of them online for those recovering from porn-related problems. You can share your story, read others' stories, ask questions, provide answers. It could be quite helpful. All right, number 3. We all tell ourselves a story about our lives, a story about who we are, what we are capable of, what we come from, and where we are going. Most of our reality is a construct of our minds. Most of how we understand how the world works has been taught to us by society or reinforced through our own life experiences. And so much about our lived experience can change when the story that we tell ourselves starts to change. It's not as simple as just saying different words to ourselves or saying affirmations, but the story that we believe about ourselves can start to change once we start to take new actions and break out of old cycles. And we start to believe that we are someone that is capable. We are someone who can accomplish things that you really want in your life. What's that Henry Ford saying? Both the man who thinks that he can and the man who thinks that he can't are both probably right. That is a quote that has always stuck with me, and it's something that I think is very, very true. A commonality that I see in people who struggle for years to leave behind porn with not much success is that they tend not to accept responsibility and legitimize their own power to change their lives. They spend a lot of their energy talking about the external factors that led them to this current situation, blaming other people or society or the pornography industry or whatever other externalities for their situation, and not thinking enough about what they can do in the present to improve that situation. They haven't fully accepted responsibility. Now, I'm not saying that they should blame themselves for where they are. Often, people that I work with were exposed to pornography for the first time when they were simply children or preteens, young teenagers, before anyone had really told them about sex, for one, or pornography, for two. What pornography could do to them, how it could warp their understanding of relationships and sexuality, how it could create addiction, how it could foster sexual dysfunction. No one warned them about that, and it's not their fault often that they have become caught in this addictive cycle. But now that they understand how all that happened and are aware of what needs to be done to break out of that cycle, they do have to take responsibility for their current situation in order to start really moving forward. Because no one is going to do this for us. Our parents aren't going to do it for us. Society is not going to do it for us. Our ex-girlfriend who broke our heart is not going to do it for us. There are people in our lives who will support us, who want to help us, but we have to be the one to walk the path. Start doing so. Accept responsibility. Experiment. Take action. Move forward. Focus just on the present and what you can do right now. And before you know it, that story that you tell yourself about yourself will start to change. And you'll start to become someone different. Your reality will become something better. Number 4 is to discover what a healthy sexual expression means for you. We are all innately sexual creatures. We are all born with a sex drive, and that is different for each one of us. It's very individual, but it's up to us to all learn how to express that sexuality in a way that leaves us feeling better, satisfied, proud, happy, having cherished memories to look back on, not feeling guilty, ashamed, regretful, weak. If the way that you're expressing your sexuality makes you feel these negative emotions, then that is a clue that something is gravely wrong, and that needs to be addressed. If you've never expressed your sexuality without feeling these things, I assure you that a sexual relationship, a way of expressing that part of yourself, is possible in a way that does not leave you feeling bad about yourself. We all need to find that. Now, I'm not saying that you need to find that immediately upon starting this journey or quitting pornography. I think it's very beneficial to have periods of complete abstinence during this journey, especially if you have never done so before. Most adults, especially adult males, have never gone more than a couple of weeks in their adult life without an orgasm. And that's a shame because there's a lot to learn about ourselves by doing so. By doing so, we can learn that sexuality or orgasm is not a need, and that we are in control. We decide how and when and with whom to express that part of ourselves in ways that are actually good for us and leave long-lasting positive impacts on our lives, and which ways we choose to cease and abstain from in our lives because we know that they lead to us feeling worse about ourselves or other consequences that we have experienced before. Now, what that healthy expression looks like differs from person to person. For some people, it'll be only sexual expression between man and wife within the bounds of marriage. And that's the means of sexual expression that they need to work toward. For others, it just means only having sexual contact or intimacy with people who they actually care about and who care about them. Could be within a committed relationship or simply a close friendship. For others, and don't kick me off the show for saying this, Matt, but for others, it's porn-free masturbation can be a part of that journey to rediscovering sexual expression without the consequences of guilt and shame and other negative repercussions from that act. Just today, I was with a client who had not masturbated without pornography or other erotic stimulation from a screen for many years, many years. And I encouraged him to try doing so, to experiment with that. And he did, and he was astounded because he thought that, like with masturbating to porn, masturbating without porn would leave him feeling drained and guilty and feeling bad. And so for a long time, he was trying to commit to being not only porn-free, but masturbation-free. But trying to go 100% abstinent made it so that he kept relapsing to pornography. And I see this cycle repeated many times. But it can actually be a good stepping stone toward a full recovery and becoming porn-free, to relearn how to masturbate without porn and have that sexual release without the interference and influence of pornography. And he said he tried it for the first time, and he was shocked because it left him not feeling any of those negative emotions. He actually felt, relaxed and actually energized, not feeling bad about himself, not feeling guilty, and was able to go on about his day and have a great night. It didn't have a lasting burden on him the way pornography does. And that's something that I think is not harmful to experiment with. And each person has to figure out for themselves what role masturbation has to play in their lives. For some, masturbation itself leaves them feeling bad, whether it's feeling bad physically or emotionally, whether that's something that's innate to how their body chemistry works, or some morals or values that they grew up with, or that they adopted as an adult. Whatever it may be, that's something that they have to discover for themselves. And I think that everyone can benefit from going completely abstinent, no pornography or sex or masturbation for periods of time, 1 month to several months. And they can learn a lot about themselves within that period, and then reanalyze and reevaluate what forms of sexual expression belong in their lives. But in the long term, I think that having the ability to masturbate porn-free can really, really help on the long-term road to recovery and staying porn-free throughout the rest of your life. Not that it will have the same sort of net or immediate positive impact as real loving sexual intimacy between two people who really care about each other. You probably won't look back years from now on that time you masturbated without porn and how great it was and cherish that memory, but you won't perhaps look back with regret on it either. All right, number 5, our last lesson for the day. That lesson is to begin thinking more about the needs of others than our own desires. It's easy to get caught up in what we want, what we are working towards in our lives, what we lack, what life has denied us, what we're trying to accomplish for ourselves. And it's a narcissistic means of living that I think is encouraged by the capitalistic society that we live in. Not to say that I'm against capitalism, I'm not, and I'm not trying to bring politics into this, but a lot of advertisements are about products, selling us products that are supposed to make us happy, or about selling us the body or the exercise regime that will give us the body that will make us happy. All these have one thing in common, and that's that you're thinking about yourself. But we are social creatures. We're innately social creatures, and we get lasting joy out of giving to others, out of helping to improve the day or the life of other people. And that's a lesson that can be really, really valuable in this journey. Help you get outside of yourself, get outside of that same cycle of feeling impulses and following them when you begin to feel this responsibility and joy from giving to others, and that connection that it fosters within you, and that lasting joy and satisfaction that it can bring you when you know that you've helped make someone else's life better. And these can be small things. It can be something as simple as leaving a little gift, baking some cookies and leaving them for your friend or your loved one, your mother. It can be as simple as giving someone a genuine compliment, telling your coworker how you've always admired this or that quality that they express, but have never told them that before. And you can see the sparkle in their eyes when that happens, the surprise and the smile, the genuine smile that they have on their face when that happens. And when you start to incorporate a conscious level of giving to others and trying to improve others' lives on a daily basis, it will really start to improve your own life. And you'll start to be thinking more about what you can do for others today and how you can improve others' lives than about the pornography that you would like to watch or whatever other indulgence or compulsion that you're struggling with. Especially in this self-recovery, self-development journey, it's easy to get caught up thinking about yourself. The word is right there, self-development. But a lot of self-development is about thinking less about yourself and more about others. So I dare you, I encourage you, I challenge you to try that for a week, every day for a week, at least once per day, one time per day. Try to consciously and significantly make someone else's day or life a little bit brighter, a little bit better, a little bit more filled with joy. And I think that if you do that for a week, you'll really notice a difference in your own life as well. All right, I hope you enjoyed these 5 lessons that I think are very valuable to growing beyond the compulsion, the addiction, the need to indulge in pornography. It's all these things I had to learn over months and years myself, and they're things that I've really seen help others going through this journey. So I hope that you can take some wisdom from them, and these are all lessons that will help anyone. Whatever your problems or your struggles or your goals might be, whether you're struggling with porn or substances or codependence, or whether you're not really struggling at all, but still looking to improve your life, these are lessons that we can all learn from. So maybe this will help you in your own life. Maybe these are lessons that you can share with someone you think needs them. Go ahead and share this podcast. Post it to your social media. Give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share. If you really appreciate it and enjoy it, then I would love for you to visit our Patreon. Patreon is a platform where supporters can monetarily support the authors and producers and creators that they really believe in. And we are getting steadily increasing support on Patreon, where people can pledge a certain amount of money per month and get certain rewards in return. And that's really awesome to see. Thank you for everyone who has already become a patron on our Patreon. It really helps to know that you value these episodes as much as you do, and it encourages us and enables us to continue making this content, and in the future make more content and more varied types of content. Did anyone say monthly live streams with me and Matt? Maybe we can make that happen somewhere down the line. So go over to our Patreon and check that out. I'm going to go ahead and ask you, if you have the means, to go ahead and support us for $10 a month. That would be amazing, and we'd appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. If you'd ever like personal guidance, you can always find ways to work with me. I am a recovery coach dealing with issues of porn addiction and porn-induced sexual dysfunctions, relationship issues stemming from pornography use, all of that good stuff. So if you'd like to find ways to work with me, you can visit me at addictedtointernetporn.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter and get the PDF of my book, Whack Addicted to Internet Porn, for free. That'll be a great foundational guide for you, give you a lot of that baseline knowledge about how pornography affects us, affects our relationships, affects our society, and how you can start growing beyond it in your own personal life if you choose to do so. All right, I think that's it. I always forget 1 or 2 things, but I think that's all for today. Hope you tune back in next week for an episode from Matt, and then the week after that for an episode from me. See y'all next time.